Good evening and welcome to the mid-year immunisation update for 2026. My name is Phoebe James. I'm a Professional Development Officer for the Hunter New England and Central Coast Primary Health Network. Before we go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we live and work on. Here in Newcastle, we are on Awabakal and Warramai land, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and any First Nations people joining us today. Just some housekeeping. If you have any questions, please put them in our question box and the wonderful behind the scene team will answer them for you. If we don't get to all of them, we will make sure that we do at a later stage via email. For your certificates, please fill out the evaluation at the end. I do the certificates manually, so it's not like an automatic thing where you do the evaluation and it spits out a certificate. So just bear with me, but I will get them to you. This is being recorded. The recording and the PDF version of the presentations will be available on the PHN website in the Education Library. We are having a break tonight. We are aiming for 7:30-ish, depending on how quickly we get through presentations. And I know that a lot of you have already seen the question that's popped up on Slido, but if you could answer that, because we're going to ask the same question as part of the evaluation, that would be amazing. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the wonderful, the amazing Sharon Saxby.
Thank you, Phoebe. You are way too kind. So welcome, everyone. It's really lovely to have you all here or there, one of the two. Just like to welcome you to a really busy night of information sharing. It's always great to spend the evening with so many fellow immunisation providers who are keen to sharpen their knowledge and their skills. It's hard to believe that it's almost the end of July, and as winter wraps its cold fingers around our shoulders, finally, it's time to reflect on what's been, look to what's changed and maybe what's on the way to our shores. So first up, we're really delighted to have Professor David Durheim join us. He's our Director of Health Protection in Hunter, New England, and a conjoint Professor of Public Health Medicine at the University of Newcastle. He's a great advocate for equitable global access. You can't get away with this, Dave. In effective public health measures, particularly immunisation. He's served as an expert advisor and consultant on WHO and other regional programs. We're privileged to work with you every day, and we're so appreciative that you're here to share your knowledge with everybody else. After Dave is finished, we will have Rachel pop on up from CD, Communicable Diseases team, to share a little bit of epi with us. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was very generous of you. And it's really lovely to join you all from Awabakal country this evening and to talk with people who are hopefully as passionate as I am about the wonderful protective effects that vaccines have. Now, I'm going to talk about a slightly different topic, which is vaccines against emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases. And you'll see the little graphic I've got there is a One Health graphic. It basically says to us, people, the environment, and animals, we're all one. It's something that our First Nations people have recognized for a very long time and which we're realizing now, and which we've recently experienced, is that most of our diseases that are emerging in human populations are spillover diseases from animal populations. They're zoonoses and very dependent on the environment. And so as we impact on our environment, we should expect more of these spillover events. So we'll talk a little bit about this spillover event, and you'll be very, very grateful. I know it's a bit early and there'll be a bit of post-traumatic stress syndrome when you see COVID-19 and that little virus. But you'll be happy to know I'm not going to be talking about the latest versions of various Omicron vaccines tonight. I'm going to actually reflect on some lessons from COVID, because COVID was the last big emerging infectious disease, and it's got some very valuable lessons for us as we look towards new emerging diseases. This was the most astounding thing. I've got a table there which shows that within 2 years of the virus emerging, we had managed to deploy 34 vaccines that were actually being used in human populations. There were 322 still in development. And look at the array of platforms, vaccine platforms, old ones like inactivated vaccines, but lots of new ones that were quite novel. That is extraordinary. It shows you what you can do when the threat is huge and the terror is large and the virus spreads and there's plenty of money. So I think this is a lesson about if the whole world is very worried, particularly high-income countries, you can develop vaccines enormously quickly. What's more is they were incredibly effective. This is one of the, when I think of this study, it was actually just after midnight, I was on a SAGE working group on vaccines meeting. And when the group from Israel and Pfizer presented this study that was eventually published in the New England Journal of Medicine, I couldn't believe how effective it was. The red lines were what people who hadn't been vaccinated were experiencing. This was a countrywide study, hundreds of thousands of participants. The blue line was the effect of the Pfizer vaccine, mRNA vaccine. And it had a huge effect on infection rates, amazing effect on symptomatic disease, and then on serious disease, hospitalization, and death. So highly effective vaccines. It's funny that even at a local level, we saw the impact of vaccines. When COVID first came in, the wild type, the death rate was about 1.6%. Omicron was just as severe, but we had a vaccine then, and it had basically reduced it by tenfold. So only 0.16 mortality. That's the impact of the COVID vaccines. Quite extraordinary. This is a very interesting slide. The purple line there is the introduction and the scale up of COVID vaccines. You can see that within a period of months, not even years, coverage globally was at around about the 65% level. Compare that to all other vaccines that we've ever introduced. It just shows you how it can be done. But the tragedy is in that bottom graph. Although 20 million lives were saved, about 800,000 more lives could have been saved, mainly in low and middle income countries, if we distributed the vaccine more equitably. So that's a really important lesson, is we need to make sure that when new challenges arise, new diseases threaten us, that we make sure that everybody is protected equally. So let's put COVID behind us. Some really important lessons that we can extract that we shouldn't forget. That's the problem with the human mind. When something's been that large, that dramatic, maybe that dreadful, we use the word dread over dinner here, dreadful, we try and relegate it. Let's talk about 2026 and Australia and infectious diseases threats. And I'm going to focus on 3 that are emerging and 1 that is re-emerging, but that people have largely forgotten because of how effective vaccines have been. The first one that took the headlines was hantavirus. Man, the media loved hantavirus. Every politician had an opinion about hantavirus. And this is the MV Honduras, some very wealthy people and some scientists going around exploring the Antarctic, mainly looking at birds. They left from the most southerly city in the world, Ushuaia, on the 1st of April. There were passengers, probably most of them were well-heeled passengers from 23 countries, and then boom, hantavirus exploded on this vessel. Now, hantavirus shouldn't spread between people. That's not the way it normally behaves. It's normally individuals who have too close for comfort contact with rats or mice in this case. It's a long-tailed dwarf mouse, which occurs in parts of South America, particularly Argentina. And what happens is from the mouse urine or dried urine in dust, they inhale it, they get this dreadful disease, which is very high fever, but can lead to an absolutely catastrophic pulmonary failure. Basically, all the little vessels in the lungs just ooze into the lungs, and basically you drown in your own fluids. So everything leaves the vessels and goes into the lungs. Very, very dreadful thing. There were 13 cases on board that were confirmed. Well, 12 were confirmed. One was a probable, but was the index case. 3 deaths. So quite a high death rate, about 25% death rate, and 440 contacts that were monitored for 42 days, scattered around the world. Now, why was this so extraordinary? Well, this Andes strain of hantavirus has only previously caused 2 large clusters, both in Argentina. The one was at a school, or was at a birthday party. It wasn't a school birthday party. 34 cases and 11 deaths. And the other was in a hospital setting with a 56% case fatality rate. But generally, it's only individual cases. If there's any spread, it's really, really close spread in a household-like contact, which probably says something about the risk of cruise ships. Things can spread on cruise ships. But then there was this media furore. So 5 Aussies and a Kiwi all came back to Australia. Everyone was calling for them to be locked up, and they were. So they were locked up and they weren't distributed around the country, and they were all locked up for 42 days. Initially, they only thought they would have to have 21, but they got 42 in Perth, or just outside of Perth. So people were calling for a vaccine. And this is where it's really important to ask the questions, is a vaccine the best thing here? Is this the best use of resources, developing vaccines against the Andes strain of hantavirus? It's incredibly rare that it transmits between people. Environmental control, simple hygiene, and a bit of rodent control is all you need. So why do you need a vaccine? So as much as I'm passionate about vaccines, this is probably not a high priority for me. Now, what's very interesting, though, is there is a vaccine, but it's against a particular strain called the Hantan strain, developed in South Korea. It's used in South Korea and in parts of Asia, particularly China. It's a wholesale kill vaccine. It offers no cross protection against the Andes virus, so it couldn't be used in this situation. And then, of course, leave it up to the US military, because they've got lots of money. They're developing a DNA vaccine targeting the glycoprotein on the surface of the Andes strain. So we don't need a vaccine for Andes. Now we're coming to something which is a little bit more concerning. So I think we can put hantavirus to bed in Australia. Ebola virus, the Bundabuja virus, is causing havoc in the northeastern corner of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Even though a public health emergency of international concern, or a FEIC, was declared by WHO 2 days after it was reported on the 17th of May, the virus had actually been circulating and misdiagnosed for probably the best part of 6 weeks to 8 weeks. It had been circulating. And you can see there's a large area that has already been affected. It had spilt over into Uganda. But if you have a look at that map, one should be really concerned that that area where there are cases shares a border which is quite porous with South Sudan, where surveillance is even weaker than in the DRC. You can see how widespread it is, mainly affecting Ituri province up in the northeast, but also North Kivu, South Kivu, and then spill over into Kampala. No cases so far yet detected or reported from South Sudan. And it's quite interesting. If we look at the history, and some of you will be aware there is an Ebola virus vaccine, but it is specific for the Zaire strain. Down at the bottom of that slide, you'll see the genetic tree of the various Ebola viruses, or what they call ortho-Ebola viruses. They are all on separate branches. They are really very different. They offer probably very little cross protection. And so basically the Zaire strain vaccine is not effective. You can see the area that has experienced Ebola viruses. None of us will forget the huge outbreak in Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia in 2014, with quite a large number. The reason it's not easily forgettable is that quite a large number of health workers, volunteers, actually contracted Ebola and then went back to their high-income countries, and that's why it got a lot of attention. The second biggest outbreak was also a Zaire outbreak in 2018 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the same area, well, a little bit further south. North Kivu was the focal point. And then the Thai forest has actually only caused one case in a veterinarian from Switzerland in Ivory Coast. And there have been outbreaks of Sudan. So the dark purple are Sudan Ebola virus outbreaks. Let's look at the current status. And this is the 15th of July, and I'll show you just 4 days later how things had grown. So in the DRC, there were 2,100 cases, 800 confirmed deaths. Uganda, 20 cases, 2 deaths. Uganda's almost going to be declared free of virus. They haven't had cases there for the last 3 weeks. And then one case, a doctor who returned to France. Now, keep the date, the 15th of July, in your mind, because we're going to show you something on the next slide. Have a look at the bottom, though. Have a look at the top line, that mauve line that's going up. That's the current outbreak. The biggie was the bottom line. That was the 2014 outbreak. The 2018 outbreak, which is the second biggest, was the one in the DRC. The case numbers after 6 weeks in the DRC eclipse how many cases in total there were in 2 years with the second biggest outbreak. So there's reason for concern. This is spreading very quickly. There's greater reason for concern. Have a look at the bottom. So just within 4 days, the case numbers have nearly crept to 2,500, and there are nearly 1,000 deaths. The case fatality rate is sitting at 40%. That is horrific. You can determine how good an outbreak response is by these 5 indicators. When you have 95% of your cases are amongst known contacts, you know you're doing good contact tracing. Currently, it's only 30%, 32%. So they're missing. Most of the cases were not known. Contacts that have been actively monitored has dropped, actually. You can see it was 82%, it's now 81%. Case to contact ratio, you expect on average about 20 to 40 contacts per case. There are only 7 contacts per case. So huge numbers are being missed. The only thing that's on track is test positivity. And the real worry is that Ebola naturally burns itself out. Its basic reproduction, the number of people on average that one case causes, is less than 1. So it burns itself out. Currently, it's sitting at 1.4 with a doubling time of 10 days. So we have reason to be worried in Africa. And this adds to the complexity. There is a huge distrust of government. There are over 200 warring factions in that part of the DRC. And this is just a photo of a treatment center that was burnt down by a community group when the Ebola team did not release a young fellow who died for burial. We know burial is one of the most dangerous parts of Ebola because people are at their most infectious just before they die and afterwards, covered in infectious body fluids. So given all of that, this is a very troubling situation for the DRC. We have this very effective vaccine, a wonderful study that was done in real time in 2014 using a ring vaccination strategy that targeted the contacts of the case and their contacts. And it's only effective if you're doing good contact tracing. But it was highly effective. The vaccine effectiveness in the field was almost 100%. 100% was actually within the confidence range. So an extraordinary study done in the middle of an Ebola outbreak, absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, we recently reviewed the 5 studies, mainly animal studies and laboratory monoclonal antibody studies, and there really isn't cross-protection from the current Zaire strain vaccine with this Bundibugyo virus. So we need a vaccine. The situation says if you could have good infection control, good community engagement, you wouldn't need a vaccine. But everything we see says we need a vaccine or this thing's going to become bigger than the 2014 outbreak. And with that, it'll seed internationally. So there are 5 vaccine candidates that are already in development, which is exciting. This is a little bit again of what we saw with COVID. Even though this isn't affecting rich countries yet, the CEPI collective is pouring money into development. The first one is based on the same vaccine platform as the effective one, and it's this replicating recombinant vesicular stomatitis virus. That one is probably going to be the best vaccine. When will it be ready to go to clinical trials? Probably only in the new year. So that's a worry. The next one is an Oxford vaccine based on the same principles. So it's a chimpanzee adenovirus and will be developed with the Serum Institute in India. But it is a non-replicating vector vaccine, a little bit like the AstraZeneca vaccine. And the problem is that the DRC had to give away most of its AstraZeneca stock because of community distrust and conspiracy theories that were floating around. So that might be a problem. Sadly, that's the one that's right ahead. And it's gone to phase 1 clinical trials in the UK at the end of last week. So there are 50 healthy volunteers. They're looking at effectiveness, an immune response, and they're looking at safety, and then they'll roll that one out, hopefully at the beginning of October in the hot zone through a ring vaccination strategy. Moderna is coming to the party with an mRNA vaccine. It may catch up. So that would be very interesting. Maybe an mRNA, because they're now much more stable, could be very useful in this setting. But we're still months from the ring vaccination trials. As I say, those phase 2-3 trials, which we rolled out in real time, will only be in October, we hope. This was a great comment, though, in, I think it's Nature Medicine last weekend, where the African CDC said, don't forget that the basic things we need to do properly. We need good surveillance. We need to get our diagnostics out. We need rapid isolation, good infection control, good community engagement, and regional cooperation. They wouldn't need a vaccine if they did all of those things properly, but we will need a vaccine given what I've just described to you. So will it get to Australia? It may. So I was on a call with human biosecurity officers this afternoon, and we're preparing this enhanced screening at the airports. We know good humanitarian groups like MSF do actually notify the Commonwealth when people are returning, and we can then put them under isolation and monitoring as necessary. But sometimes we get surprises, so we have to prepare as if Ebola. We don't think in Australia we would have a large outbreak, but we may get individual cases. So there won't be a rollout of vaccine in Australia, but maybe for humanitarian workers. Now, this is the other thing that's really important. This is highly pathogenic avian influenza, H5N1. The last continent that was free of clade 2.3.4.4b was Australia, and it's unfortunately arrived. Arrived on the 20th of June. There's a beautiful brown skua. They were the bird that brought it into Esperance in Western Australia. By the 24th of June on Knights Beach in South Australia, there was also a detection. And then lo and behold, on the 28th of June, a detection at a beautiful beach called Bennett's Beach near Hawke's Nest. And then a second detection. The only 2 in New South Wales are just up the coast from us here on Bennett's Beach. They were giant petrels. There's a photo of a giant petrel. And it's a real worry because the possibility, the second giant petrel, there were some paw marks and there was already scavenging of the eyes of the bird. So possibly crows, possibly some other scavenger. So the possibility of spillover once these migratory birds get in is really quite high. What will it mean? This is the total for Australia at the moment. I just love that bottom photo. This was a giant petrel that they found passed away up in Noosa. And that is such an Aussie picture. You've got a guy in his PPE picking up the bird, and people are picnicking, and people are in their budgie smugglers on the beach. It's just wonderful. There have been 17 cases so far of bird flu of this strain detected in Australia. You can see it there. And we hope that this season it won't spill over. There have been no spillovers yet into domestic birds or domestic wild birds or animals, but this is the impact at a global level. In the last 6 years, over 600 wild bird species have been impacted. Some of them have actually nearly been basically eliminated to extinction. 70 mammal species we've seen spill over into mainly marine mammals, but any carnivores that eat dead mammals, it's spilled over. And dairy cattle was a huge issue in North America. Where it's got into poultry, it's been disastrous, with massive culls, the only way of actually terminating the big outbreaks. Fortunately, only about 100 human cases in that time, and these have been people who've been very close to infected animals, and 3 deaths. So there's been no sustained, even though people can get infected, even though they can get severe disease occasionally, even though they can die at 3%, we've seen no spread from human to human on a sustained basis. So if we're thinking, a lot of people have said, well, this will be the next pandemic. Currently, it doesn't look that way. It's a new virus. It meets the first criterion. It's virulent enough to cause disease in humans, but it would have to become quite a bit more virulent to cause wide-scale serious disease. But it must be able to spread efficiently, which it cannot do. Could it reassort with another flu strain? That's possible. So people are saying, well, why don't we then roll out? There are big stocks of H5N1 vaccine against this strain. Why don't we pre-vaccinate? The problem is that this current strain is not the pandemic strain. Pandemic strain will take reassortment. We don't know what the pandemic virus will be if one actually eventuates. So at the moment, it doesn't look as though that this will be the case. But if it does get established in Australia without reassortment, it will have devastating impacts, not only on our wildlife and wild birds, but also massive economic impacts, which immediately have health impacts, and the mental health issues of people who are directly involved, particularly in the poultry industry or wildlife, wild birds, will be enormous. Aboriginal people as well have a very close connection with environment and with these wild mammals and birds, and that would be catastrophic as well. So it's not a great thing that it's arrived in Australia. So let's put aside the exotics. Let's look at an old friend that we thought we'd conquered with vaccines, and that's diphtheria. And I'm going to focus on the Northern Territory, but it has affected Northern Australia, both up in the Kimberley, northern Western Australia, and up in North Queensland. But we've seen the emergence of this toxigenic ST381 strain, toxigenic diphtheria. And you can see this was a paper published in the European CDC journal just about 3 weeks ago, where the Northern Territory and Australian CDC put together the whole picture. You can see a very rapid emergence in the first 4 months of this year of this strain. And you can see in the cutaneous diphtheria, the number of toxigenic, about half of them are toxigenic strains. So it's really taken hold in the community. If you look at the slide, and I'll highlight it, it's very small. The 95% of cases have been in Aboriginal people in this Northern Territory cluster. What's very interesting is that 60% plus of the cases are in young adults, not in little children. It's in young adults. A small proportion have been needed intensive care. Only 3 people and only 1 person has passed away, which is tragic, but that's not what you normally see with diphtheria. This is because diphtheria is affecting a well-vaccinated population, but their immunity is waning. And the fact that it's middle-aged people that are getting diphtheria and that it's people who have had partial courses is really the key here. So there is a strategy in the Northern Territory at the moment to roll out vaccine to all Aboriginal folks with 1 extra dose, or to catch up those who've actually missed doses. That should be effective. But it's very important that this ancient disease, which is making a recurrence in Northern Australia, that we don't expose travellers from our area, from New South Wales, who are going up there. So New South Wales Health has got a strategy. Anybody going into the outbreak-affected area is recommended to have a dose of diphtheria-containing vaccine if they haven't had a dose in the last 5 years. And that includes Northern Territory. It includes those parts of WA, as well as far northwest South Australia. And it's funded for Aboriginal people who are going into those areas who haven't had a boost in the last 5 years. And it's also funded for all Aboriginal people in New South Wales who haven't had a booster in the last 10 years because of the strong community connections across Australia. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about some emerging and re-emerging threats, some which will need a vaccine, some which will have a vaccine, some won't need a vaccine, and some where we've got a very good vaccine, not a perfect vaccine, but where we need boosters. Thanks very much. I'm going to hand over to Rachel Grisk. Rachel's one of our nurse consultants at Hunter New England who works in communicable diseases. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you. Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity, firstly, to present tonight. I'm one of the, as Dave said, the CNCs in the communicable disease team at Hunter New England Public Health Unit. I'd just like to acknowledge and thank the Awabakal people, the traditional custodians of these beautiful lands which I'm presenting here tonight on, and pay my respects to elders, past and present. So tonight I'm just going to really give you a brief situational update on current and emerging trends and concerns and what it may mean locally, and you know, what you may actually be seeing some of this in your practice at the moment. So so to begin with, a little overview. So 3 important respiratory viruses being monitored currently, so influenza, RSV and COVID. Influenza activity at the moment, we know levels are moderate this week, and we've seen increased test positivity as well. So RSV activity is at high levels this week and also increased test positivity. And that's probably not surprising to many people, many of you clinicians, you might be seeing cases of influenza and RSV in clinical practice at the moment. Currently, COVID levels are low and considered relatively stable. The graph just here highlights Burwood Beach wastewater surveillance monitoring in Hunter, New England here. And this is important for tracking transmission and emerging variants. And we can see a slight increase there just starting at toward the end of July. So we'll continue to monitor that. And currently, I guess we know there's multiple COVID sublineages and co-circulating with no single dominant variant that's contributing to any increased case numbers. So just going across a little bit. So this slide is just to, I guess it just shows ED activity. So for me, I think this is significant as it shows the clinical impacts of current respiratory activity at the moment. With COVID and influenza, ED presentations and admissions remaining stable. However, we do know that influenza is increasing at the moment in the community and contributing to respiratory demand across the population currently. So we're likely to see an increase in ED presentations in coming weeks with influenza potentially. The graph here also illustrates bronchiolitis ED activity, particularly in infants under 1 year, that the top pink line there. And that really does align with what we're seeing in the community at the moment with RSV activity. We know that RSV is a major cause of bronchiolitis in young infants, and that's what the graph's kind of reflecting, I guess. So activity in infants is rising toward the higher levels at the moment, and we, as you can see, we did observe this last winter also. So I guess what does this kind of mean? Well, while COVID is expected to remain stable, influenza actually is following kind of a different trajectory at the moment. And we know activity is moderate and increasing, and it's mainly being driven by influenza A, so H3. Children are now returning back to school after school holidays, so cases numbers are likely to increase further. So 2025, you may remember, for many of us, I remember it well, in terms of flu season. And I guess many people considered it a bit of an unusual flu season, as we experienced very large and prolonged flu season in 2025 with sustained winter activity, followed by another rise later in the year that was really associated with influenza A, H3 and 2. So far this year, in 2026, our season's been a bit more what we could probably consider seasonally typical than 2025, but activity with flu is still increasing. And our current modelling really does suggest that influenza peak is likely to begin around August this year. So it's actually a really great time to get vaccinated if promote vaccine at the moment with that upcoming modelling. So just moving across, I guess while influenza and other respiratory viruses are increasing in the broader community, it's always an important focus of ours to protect people in high-risk settings. So particularly residential aged care facilities at homes, where we know viruses can really spread quickly and cause severe illness. So just looking at the graph there, so currently our outbreak activity is considerably lower than the 2025 peak, which you probably can see on screen there, as indicated just there. However, as we move into winter with activity increasing, notifications may continue to increase for flu. The 2025 peak was largely, you can see, due to COVID-19 and influenza. And current state and local outbreak activity really does indicate some outbreaks being driven currently by multiple pathogens, and that's something that we're going to continue to monitor. So I guess we're prioritising vaccination again and early testing and prompt outbreak control measures as well. And I just wanted to also just touch on other respiratory pathogens currently circulating. So rhinovirus remains commonly detected. HMPV and adenovirus continue to circulate and are flagging as well. And pertussis, it still remains clinically important, and with our greatest concern for young infants. So the graph here just highlights the large pertussis epidemic that peaked in 2024 and early into 2025 that many of you may remember. While we can see there that notifications have currently, substantially decreased, transmission is still occurring, as we know. So, of course, makes prevention and vaccination important. The immunisation team will cover vaccines more in detail, but including important immunisation updates such as flu mist and the encouraging results of the RSV infant RSV prevention program, and some exciting stuff like the pneumococcal vaccine. So I won't double up on that. However, I will just move across to staying with vaccine preventable diseases, and I'll move across into measles, which you've probably heard a little bit about recently. So, with measles, we're seeing ongoing global and regional transmission, and that does continue to have direct impacts for our practice. That this graph here shows the global measles activity has increased since 2022. and transmission is continuing to occur across multiple WHO regions. A little closer to home, we've got in the Western Pacific region, measles activities has shown substantial regional increase since 2021, as you can see depicted in the graph there, with major outbreaks in Mongolia and Indonesia, and ongoing transmission into neighbouring countries as well. So in Australia, activity here has largely been linked to overseas acquired cases. However, we have had some local transmission that's also occurred. And so far during 2026, New South Wales has reported the highest notifications nationally out of the states. So it's always, as clinicians, to consider measles early and be familiar with those key signs and symptoms of measles. And for anyone presenting, it's always important to obtain a travel history, vaccine status, and assess for any epi links as well in suspected cases. And then just your other measures are isolation promptly and contacting us at the Public Health Unit, as well as collecting any appropriate specimens and serology as well. That's really the key. Just moving across. Just to kind of wrap up a little bit, we continue to manage a broad range of public health priorities. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of those. STIs, we've concerningly seen in recent years a resurgence of congenital syphilis, something preventable, treatable, and something that was, otherwise of the bygone era. So that's something we are monitoring closely. And just today I was reading about Mpox case numbers in WA, how they've rapidly started increasing among heterosexual men and women. And locally, we still see persistent rates of chlamydia and gonorrhea as well. Our team continues to manage overseas rabies exposures and Australian bat lizard virus risks as well. And moving into, a little bit deeper into winter and then into spring, we also typically see seasonal trends with vaccine preventable diseases, such as invasive meningococcal disease. Now with Newcastle Airport offering here in Hunter, New England, direct international flights to Southeast Asia. Travel history remains really important and relevant to our clinical practice as well. I've just got a little map up there, so that just highlights some emerging disease activity across the Pacific. And although not all events pose, an immediate threat to us, it's important we all stay alert and remain prepared. And I think that's it from me. So if you need to get in contact, please feel free to. Anytime, we're always happy to chat. We all love talking about communicable diseases and emerging concerns and threats. And so please get in touch. There's our email address and phone number. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was really interesting. And David, for your interesting presentation as well. So we are going to touch on pneumococcal. Lots of things have been happening in the space of pneumococcal vaccination. And for those of you who have been around long enough in providing immunisations, you'll know how messy and difficult getting it right. So pneumococcal vaccination recommendations have been messy and it has been difficult for you. So pleased to announce that vaccination across Australia has been, for pneumococcal disease, has been simplified. We have a beautiful schedule now across the life course with various changes having been made in the last couple of years. So in 2025, the childhood schedule was changed. So 20-valent PCV replaced the 13-valent PCV and the 23 PPV. So Prevnar 13 and Pneumovax 23 have been shafted, and they're not the NIP vaccines anymore. And the 4-dose schedule for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children were expanded across all states and territories. So for those children, it is the same across Australia now for a 4-dose schedule, which is fantastic news. There was a lot of inequity for quite some time. 2026, there's been changes to the adult schedule. So as of a month or so ago, we've now had the introduction of 21-valent PCV, which replaced the 13-valent and the 23 as well. So they are now the NIP-funded pneumococcal vaccines, 21 is now the pneumococcal-funded vaccine for all adults. So doses of 23-valent PPV, so your Pneumovax 23, is no longer required for any population of any age, as is your 13-valent. So that is really good news, making it much more simple for you guys out there who are having to organise pneumococcal vaccination recommendations. And I know in the meantime, in the first little bit, it's going to be a little bit difficult because you're going to have to say what have they had when and when can they have the next one. But overall, it's going to be much simpler. So 21-valent PCV, introducing Capvaxive. I'm not sure who comes up with creative names, but they've done a doozy this time. So I'm sure you've all got Capvaxive in your fridges by now. If not, please order some because you shouldn't have any 13-valent and 23-valent in your fridges anymore. Obviously, 21-valent has got 21 serotypes in the vaccine, which are slightly different to what's been in the other ones previously, and we'll cover that in a minute. So Capvaxive is registered for 18 years and over. It's a single dose. Lovely to hear, a single dose. It's administered by IM and can be given at the same time as any other vaccines, which is really good news as well. The only contraindication is anaphylaxis to a previous dose of any pneumococcal vaccine. There is a precaution, not routinely recommended in pregnancy, but also give it some consideration if there's a risk there and talk to your GPs. Common side effects, injection site reaction, myalgia, fatigue, irritability, chills, similar to all the previous pneumococcal vaccines. And just everyone's a bit nervous about new vaccines. So just some reassurance that Capvaxive has been used actively in the United States and Canada for the last couple of years. So what, who and when? So this is our schedule. So we have a childhood schedule, so our non-Indigenous children without risk conditions. So it's 3 doses of 20-valent PCV at 2, 4 and 12 months for our really healthy children. For our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, it's 4 doses of 20-valent PCV. So your Prevnar 20 at 2, 4, 6 and 12 months. And that goes also with our children under 12 months of age with a risk condition. They also get their 4 doses. Our children and adolescents aged 12 months to less than 18 years with a risk condition, at diagnosis they get a dose of Prevnar 20. And there's some indications there of an interval for when they've had their last one. If it was a PCV, then you need a 2-month gap. If it was the Pneumovax 23, they get 12 months gap. And our adults, our non-Indigenous adults without a risk condition now get a dose of 21-valent, so Prevnar 21, Capvaxive, sorry, I shouldn't say Prevnar 21 because it's not. It's Capvaxive at age 65, which is different. And our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander adults without a risk condition at the age of 25. And you'll notice that they're very different recommendation ages from what we used to say. And our adults aged 18 years and over with a risk condition now get one at diagnosis. And their interval is just 12 months from any previously received pneumococcal vaccine. Just take note of those 2 new age brackets for our non-Indigenous and our Aboriginal people, 65 and 25. And lowering that age to 65 is really good because it lines up with our flu recommendations and other recommendations to come as well. So once again, making our schedule even more simpler for you. So why another pneumococcal vaccine? We have a Prevnar 13, we have a Prevnar 15, we have a Prevnar 20, and now we've got Capvaxive 21. So as you can see there, these are all the different serotypes in all the different vaccines. And you can see the 13, 15, 20 and the Pneumovax 23 all had similar serotypes in their vaccine. And you can see there in that pink line that the Capvaxive has got slightly different. So some are duplicated, but there's others up on the right-hand end. So traditionally, we've provided vaccines with the same serotype combination for children and adults because adult disease serotypes are usually determined by what the children are carrying. But the new strategy is to rely on herd protection offered from the childhood program using the 20-valent PCV, and then expand protection offering to adults by using the 21 PCV, thus offering protection to a collective 31 serotypes to our adults. Obviously, it's a new program and we're going to have to watch if this strategy is working, but that will be closely monitored. So pneumococcal disease risk varies by age, and I think we all know this, but it's really lovely to see a graph like this, and you can see that in the 0 to 4s, which we target with our pneumococcal, our 20-valent pneumococcal vaccine, the risks are greater. We can see the risk greatly increased. And then on the very other end of the scale, we can see our plus 75s, where it's really escalated again. Those in the middle are usually individuals with an underlying risk condition, so they also are exposed. In here, we can see the most common serotypes which are causing IPD, so invasive pneumococcal disease, in all adults aged 65 and above. And this is that last 10 years between 2015 and 24. The dark blue boxes down the bottom are the ones covered in both 20-valent PCV and 21-valent PCV. The purple are the 21-valent PCV only, and the light blue is the 20 PCV only. So you can see here that the combination of the 21-valent and the 20-valent is covering the wide range of serotypes that are causing most disease in adults. And of course, the 21-valent covers most of the ones, which is really good news as well. So it'd be really interesting to watch going forward. Why have we lowered the recommendation age to 25 for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? And I think this graph is a really good picture of why we've done that. So that top dark green dotted line is 23-24 rates, and we can see that they are above the other years. And we can also see from about the age of 25, that line starts to go sharply upwards. So by lowering this, the recommendation age, we're going to get in earlier to offer this protection to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people at a time when we know that they are more, there's more disease prevalence in that age cohort. And we can see here, this is a lovely report from NCIS. We can see this is the 13-valent, because we don't have 21-valent coverage data at the moment, but this is 13-valent adult coverage estimates in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The first little graphs on the left-hand side is our 50 to 69-year-olds. And remember that 13-valent PCV was recommended and funded from 50 previously for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So we can see that in that age group, there's only about 25% of the cohort that have actually received a vaccine. A little bit of a disclaimer here is that there is potentially a bit of a discrepancy between what's actually been given and what's on air. So that is just a reminder for everyone to make sure that all the vaccines that you give are recorded onto air. Thank you, Phoebe. On the right-hand side is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander adults 70 years and over. And there we can see that just over slightly half, 50%, have actually been recorded as receiving a vaccine. So even though it's been steadily increasing every year, it's still not optimal for what we want. So this is just in all adults for that same 10 years. So just showing you there that it's grumbling along a little bit, but the anticipated benefit from lowering the age to 65 years from what we had previously at 70 years, there's an estimated figure that we'll actually reduce the number of IPD cases by around 1/3 of vaccine-preventable IPD cases in that 65-year and over age cohort. So it's capturing that next 5 years of people that we weren't previously capturing. And now my clicker's not working, Todd. Please. So this once again shows NC's data of 13-valent adult coverage estimates. And we can see here this is just all adults. So it's still, again, slowly increasing, but we're still under 50%. Once again, the disclaimer that not all doses may be on air. So really good reminder to put everything on. And you can see down the bottom, in contrast to the adult rates, down the bottom, coverage at the 12-month dose of 13-valent PCV for all children in 2024 was actually 94%. So that's actually fabulous. It's in the adults that we're sort of falling down. So we really need to make sure that we get Capvaxive out there and into arms, and especially with those lower age groups, we've really got a good chance of getting really good coverage. Next slide, thanks, Todd. There have been some changes as far as eligibility for NIP funding for people with risk conditions for pneumococcal disease. So now funded is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, so COPD, including chronic bronchitis and emphysema, chronic liver disease, so conditions where progressive deterioration of liver function for more than 6 months, including cirrhosis and other advanced liver disease. So there's some really good tables in the handbook regarding that. So all the risk conditions for pneumococcal disease and whether they're funded or not. So we all love a handbook, Australian Immunisation Handbook table. Sometimes it's a bit tricky on where to find them. But if you ever have trouble, there's a search bar up the top, and you can always give us a call and we're happy to show you where they are. And for tonight's presentation, I've actually included a few QR codes. So if you're really keen, you can always stick your camera up there and QR and it will take you straight to the table. So this is that table, risk conditions and NIP funding eligibility for pneumococcal vaccination. Really comprehensive table. So if you're in doubt about whether someone's eligible for funding, have a look at the table. If you've still got questions, call us. There's lots of other good resources on there too. So this one's about the clinical guidance around pneumococcal vaccine administration errors. No one likes a vaccine administration error, least of all us. We do like you to tell us about them so we can give you some guidance on what to do. But this is a really good table about what to do when you have made a vaccine administration error. So once again, there's a scan there that you can, a QR code that you can scan. Anyone out there still got Prevnar 13 and Pneumovax 23 in your fridge? They have to go. Okay, we don't use them anymore. So to avoid any more vaccine administration errors, you need to dispose of the Prevnar 13 and Pneumovax 23 now. So just log on to your vaccine account website, account number, go to report expired vaccines, put Prevnar 13 in there, Pneumovax 23, however many doses you've got, and mark them expired as the 30th of June 2026. Even though it's the 22nd of July now, mark them as the 30th as the 6th, 26. And then report expired vaccines. We want them all gone out of fridges. We don't want them accidentally used and given to somebody because we're not offering optimal coverage. This is a table that disappeared about a year ago off the handbook, and we used to use it all the time and show people about it. These are great resources. So this is a table where it's just got the whole schedule for all Australians. Very clear, really good to use. Please avail yourself of these. And another one is for people who've previously received a pneumococcal vaccination. So the previous one, starting from scratch. This one, if you've already received a vaccine, then this is where you go to see what do you have next and when do you have this? How long have you got to leave it in between? Lots of great resources out there. Of course, the handbook is your go-to guide for pneumococcal information. And then there's also NCIS. They have some fantastic frequently asked questions. Also, the Immunisation Coalition has a really great pneumococcal disease guide. And last of all, you can ring us. But there's lots of good resources to look at before you come to us. We're going to move on now to just winter vaccination update. A little bit like what Rach was saying, it is not too late to vaccinate, okay? Winter is really odd. Flu season is really odd, as if we hadn't learnt anything from last year. So please keep thinking vaccination. All providers with a vaccine account number would have got this notification yesterday or the day before. The Vaxigrip doses that are funded for 6 months to less than 5 years in New South Wales Vaccine Centre has been exhausted. Now, we do know, because we get access to air data and they know how many doses have been distributed, we actually know that a great portion of those vaccines are still sitting in vaccine fridges, or people are not putting doses onto AIR after they've been administered. So we really encourage everyone to have a look at what's in your fridge and please use it. They have been granted in that email was notification that there's a special licence to be able to transfer those vaccines between another provider who needs them. So if you have stock of Vaxigrip in your fridge that you don't think you're going to use, I think they expire at the end of December, that you're not going to use, and you have another provider close by that's happy to accept them, and you have adhered to the cold chain, then yeah, they're happy for you to transfer them. We don't recommend transfer of vaccines between providers for any other case, just for flu vaccine, because we're trying to manage stock. If you've got questions and you're not sure, just call us. The really good news, though, is FluMist is still funded between 2 and 17 years. Remember the days when FluMist first came out, it was just for 2, 3 and 4-year-olds. People were having to throw out doses. But due to the great advocacy from many people, they expanded that funding up to 17 years so we could get that stock into noses, or up noses, I should say. And that's been going really well. They still have a limited supply that you can order if you're in a GPS or an AMS that expire soonish. We all know they've had short expiry dates, but that's due to how that vaccine is stored and how it's been delivered to the vaccine centre, so out of our control. If you're a provider other than an AMS or a GP and you wish to order doses of FluMist, get in touch with us and we'll see what we can do, because we want these vaccines up noses and not in the bin. So ATAGI has that great seasonal guide if anyone's really still unsure about what vaccine to give who. Just remember your flu ad is for 65s and over, and FluCellVax is for the people between 5 and 65 who have a medical risk condition. And FluMist is still funded under the state program. Eligibility hasn't changed at all, so just remember all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from the age of 6 months and over are eligible for free vaccine. So really important, once again, to establish whether somebody identifies as an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person. For many reasons, especially for this, we need to give them a flu vaccine. All children 6 months to 5 years, individuals with risk conditions, a whole list in the handbook once again, pregnant women, really important, and people over the age of 65. But recommended for everyone, just not necessarily funded. How many doses? There was a change this year for people that were having, or children especially, that were having flu vaccine for the first time in their first year. It used to be from 6 months up to the age of 9. Now it is for healthy children up to the age of 2 and those with medical risk conditions up to the age of 9. Once again, there's a really good table in the handbook that outlines all of that, not just for children, but for everybody, how many doses they need and whether it's a intranasal or an injectable flu vaccine. This is really encouraging news. So this is a graph that's as of the 4th of July. This is showing of all the children that have got doses recorded on air, influenza doses that is, how many of those have had an LAIV, so a FluMist, up the nose. So in Hunter, New England, 73% of all children who've received a flu vaccine, between 2 and 5 years of age, have received a FluMist, which is fabulous news. Look at that, we're beating New South Wales and Australia. It's always good to win. And for Aboriginal children, same age groups, 2 to 5, 73% in LH in Hunter, New England, and New South Wales are close behind and Australia not so well. So that's really good news. Something that got off to a really slow start has really ramped it up. And I didn't look at the ones up to age of 17. I thought our 2 to 5-year-olds are really, really important. This is other good news. So this really shows you the impact of that increase that we've just been seeing about LAIV. This is from NCIS. Anyone can look this up. So it shows there all the different age cohorts from 2020 up to 2026. And you can see there that our 4 to 5-year-olds from 25 to 26 has been an 8% increase of influenza vaccination, which is absolutely fabulous. 3 to 4s is 6% and 2 to 3s is a 7% increase. Unfortunately, our over 65s has actually dipped a bit, continuing a trend that's not really very good at all. That's for all people. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, over 65s has still dipped again. In 2020 we had 72%. Now we've got 60%. So that's really concerning. But our 4 to 5-year-olds, there's a 10% increase in the last year, which is absolutely fabulous news. And 2 to 3-year-olds, it's 8%. So Rach mentioned the success of the RSV prevention program, which we've rolled out. So 2024 was just a bit of an ad hoc program. 25, we rolled out a complete program. And you can see here, so an abstract was done in 2025, which is absolutely great. This is an MJA article led by Jenica Admin showing that there was an estimated coverage of 63% maternal vaccination and 18% infant immunisation. Remember that immunisation for infants was lower because we're looking at maternal vaccination to provide protection for bubs before they're born. It led to more than a 40% reduction in RSV notifications and hospitalisations in infants aged younger than 6 months. That is a huge success. Okay, and as we go forward, hopefully we'll get more mums vaccinated for RSV as this becomes one of the normal vaccines that we offer in pregnancy. And moving forward, we hope to see a greater reduction again. So great job, everybody out there. So RSV, vaccine and MABs, the recommendation and funding. There's always a little bit of confusion around this because most other vaccines, there may be a little bit of funding for people who have medical risk conditions. With RSV, for our older people, there is no funding for people with medical risk conditions. It's just age rated. So pregnant women, 28 weeks gestation, every pregnancy. I can't stress enough, it's just a Brisvo, okay, and it's NIP funded. Our infants, of course, if needed, get Nirsevimab only. We don't get a Brisvo for them, just Nirsevimab, and that's funded by states and territories. Will be interesting to see what goes on moving forward. Remember, it's not a vaccine. All people aged 75 years and over. Registered, they can get Arexvy or a Brisvo, but Arexvy is the only one that's funded. If they want a Brisvo, they have to buy it privately. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, it's 60 years and over. And once again, it's Arexvy only that's funded. So they are the only ones that are funded. People with medical risk conditions, factors for severe RSV disease, age 60 to 74, recommended to consider, but it's private purchase only. Okay? And same with adults 50 to 59. It's just private purchase. So please, RSV vaccination administration errors. We do see these, unfortunately. We have seen several women who've been given Arexvy in pregnancy. It's not good. We need to be very, very careful. In your fridge, we need to make sure that a Brisvo and Arexvy are clearly labelled and are not next to each other. Okay, there is that really, really slight risk of preterm delivery that showed up in some studies. We haven't seen that since it's been rolled out, but they're enough concern that we just don't give Arexvy in pregnancy. This is a really, really good table. Gives you some guidance on what to do if the wrong product has been given. Once again, in the handbook. Two really good resources. These are developed by another PHU. So there's a New South Wales free flu vaccination checker. Okay, so this is if people are trying to figure out whether they're eligible for a free flu vaccine, they can scan this QR code and they can work through it themselves and see whether they can obtain a funded vaccine. And this is just fairly recent. This is VaxCheck New South Wales. So this is an all-over vaccination assessment tool. So scan the QR code, answer lots of questions, and it will let you know what vaccines that you're due for. So these are really good resources that you could probably share with your patients. And my final slide is, David was talking about diphtheria. You know, no one thought that diphtheria would be coming back. We just have to talk about tetanus. Tetanus, rare, doesn't mean that it's gone. Okay, tetanus is around all the time. It's in the soil, it's hidden. So we need to make sure we stay protected. So as well as getting that top up with our Boostrix, our DTPA for pertussis, we need to make sure we stay on top of our DTPA for our tetanus as well. So it's in the childhood schedule at 2, 4, 6, 18 months and 4 years. Adolescent schedule at school in year 7. But check your adolescents when they come into the surgery. If they haven't had that dose in year 7, please offer it. Our adults at 50 and 65 years of age, if it's been more than 10 years since their last dose, please check, offer a dose. Not funded, but offer a dose. And our travellers every 10 years. And tetanus-prone wounds, obviously, if it's been less than 5 years since the last dose, we need to be offering a tetanus-containing vaccine. So when did you have your last tetanus? Ask your patients. Offer a booster if it's recommended. And thank you very much. Hopefully you go off and immunise, and we're going to have a 10-minute break. Thank you. Welcome back, and I hope you've managed to get yourself a coffee or a drink, whatever you like, made yourself cosy and settle in for the next part of our session. I'm going to introduce Renee Reynolds, who works for our surveillance team in Hunter, New England. Come on up, Renee. And Renee is going to explain to you a project that we're undertaking, and she's all knowledgeable. So welcome, Renee.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here tonight. And yes, I'm a data analyst, so maybe someone a bit different to what you'd usually see here at these sessions. But I've been working with the immunisation team at the Public Health Unit to create a system for facilities to be able to report their cold chain breaches. We're really excited about this project and we're really hoping that it will help to streamline this process for everyone involved. And so whilst I'm going through what this is going to look like, we really welcome any and all feedback. So please, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback on what it looks like, please let us know. We've been testing this internally at the Public Health Unit, and we've also done some testing with some services. So thank you so much to everyone that's been involved with some testing. And we're really hoping to get this out next month. We've just got a few little things that we need to tidy up. But yeah, as I said, it's really aimed at streamlining the process for you. So the first part of the process is we will get you to fill in a cold chain breach request form, which is on the screen right now. So we will have a link to this on the Hunter New England website, Hunter New England Health District website. But we've also created a QR code poster that we will have a link to on the website as well, that you could print off and have on your vaccine fridge so that you don't have to always navigate to the website. You can just scan that QR code and it will take you straight to this form. So we've got a little bit of information at the top of the form that will let you know the types of information that we will need you to, the documents we'll need you to upload to the form so that you can get those items ready whilst you're waiting for us to send the form to you. We don't need too much information when you're requesting the form. We'll just ask you to pop in the name of the facility that you're at and the suburb. We know that some facilities have the same or similar names, so it's really important that we know exactly which one that we're needing to send this form to. Please pop in the name of the person that is reporting the cold chain breach and the best contact number for them. And then here we will ask you to fill in your email address, and I'll just quickly show you what happens. So this is not going to be a real email, so I don't get spammed. But you'll see this little pop-up that will tell you that the email addresses are not matching. And that will go away once you enter in your email address again, because it's just really important that we're getting the right email address to send this form off to. So once you enter it again and click outside of that box, you'll see that little red flag will go away and you can hit submit. And once you submit that, it will send off an email to the Public Health Unit, to the immunisation team, and then we will send out a link to the form where you enter the information about your cold chain breach. And that email will actually have some examples of the types of documents that we will be requesting you upload to that form so that you can see exactly what we'll be asking from you. So I'll just show you what the form looks like. So again, we let you know what you'll need to be uploading. And we've also got some information at the top here that you can actually save your progress and return later to the form. We know that you're really busy people and you might not be able to, get it all done in one go. So if you do need to do that, you hit the save and return later, you'll be given a return code. It's really important that you save that return code somewhere that you can easily access it, because that's what you'll need to be able to get back in. So all of the fields in this form are mandatory. And sorry, just before I go on, I forgot to mention that this is for the Hunter New England Local Health District. So unfortunately for other locations, this will not be available at the moment, but hopefully this will be really handy for H&E. So we will pipe in some information about your practice so that we can make sure that we've sent it off to the right people. So we'll just get you to pop in your name and your email address. We'll do the confirmation again, because again, it's just really important that we're making sure that we're sending the information back to the right person, because this form is actually going to act as a bit of it's going to bounce back and forth between you and the immunisation team. So you'll see underneath each section, we have this little yellow box, and it will tell you any fields that you haven't completed. So as you enter information into the field, it will disappear from underneath. And once you've filled in all of the fields for that section, that yellow box will disappear. So the next part of the form is asking about the cold chain breach resolution. So before you can fill in the full form and receive advice for your immunisation products, the breach needs to have resolved. So that means that the temperature of if the temperature of the refrigerator has not returned to be between 2 and 8 degrees, the breach has not resolved yet. So if that's the case, you would just select no here. And we would ask you to tell us why the cold chain breach hasn't resolved, just for our information. And then you'd pop in today's date just by hitting this today button here. And we have a little bit of information here saying that you must wait until the cold chain breach has resolved before completing the form. Please do not administer any vaccines until the cold chain breach has resolved and we've provided you with advice. And please pop a sign on the refrigerator to not use vaccines because there is a cold chain breach in progress. And please do not discard any vaccines at this time. And we've actually created a sign for that, which we will also put a link to on the website so that you can print that off and pop it on your fridge. There's also this green box that just describes what you need to do. So you would hit the Save and Return Later button down here, and you'll receive that return code. And you just need to save that somewhere again where you can find it. And we will send you an email with an updated link so that you can continue with the form. You wouldn't use the original link that we sent to you. You would use the one that gets sent to you as soon as you've hit the Save and Return Later. So let's just say that, yes, the cold chain breach, the breach has resolved. So then you'll see that this form mimics the PDF form that you might have used previously. But we've just added some more information to try and help with understanding the type of information that we need to get from you, because that PDF form can be quite confusing. So this first section is just details of the cold chain breach. So type of refrigerator, the date of the breach, the reason for the breach, and you'll see that these reasons are the same that are provided on the PDF form. We ask about whether there was an uninterrupted power supply. We ask for the minimum and maximum data logger temperature. And we've just got examples of how we want you to enter that information there. And then we also ask for the duration outside of the 2 to 8 degrees. We ask if the affected immunisation products are currently being stored in a functioning purpose-built vaccine refrigerator. I'll just make sure I'm clicking things as I go in case things open up. And then we ask, is this the first cold chain breach for these immunisation products? If you say no, we'll just ask you what was the date of the previous breach. We also ask if anyone has been vaccinated with the compromised immunisation products. If you say yes, we'll just have a little pop-up here that tells you that we'll provide you some advice in response to this form. And during the breach, did you use a cooler for the transfer? If you say yes, that means that we'll just need to get you to upload a chart later on in the form. If you say no, that's fine. And then we've just got a few of these immunisation product management policies and procedures just to check what you have in place at your facility. So you can see I haven't filled everything in, so that little yellow yellow box is there. Now, up here, when we choose the reason for the breach, if we choose refrigerator malfunction, that will actually open up this whole section that is otherwise usually hidden. And this is to provide some information about your fridge. So we have date of refrigerator purchase and last refrigerator service, information for the data logging details, and also the battery min-max thermometer details and alternative immunisation product storage details. And we know that sometimes it's quite difficult to have this information to hand, so we'll get you to either pop in a date if you know it, or there is a box here to say unknown. So if you do know it, please fill it in. Otherwise, you can say unknown. So then we move on to the immunisation product section. And this is a section that I think it gets very confusing for facilities. So we're hoping that this really helps you to understand the type of information that we need to get from you. So for each immunisation product, we have a little tick box. So you only need to tick the ones that you have in the fridge that were affected by the cold chain breach. And when you do that, we will then ask you, have any of the doses, say of a Brisvo, have any of those doses been exposed to more than one cold chain breach? And this is really important information because the advice can be different for those doses that have only been exposed to this one current breach compared to doses that might have been exposed to this breach plus other ones in the past. So if you were to say no, all of the doses of a Brisvo have only been affected by this current breach, then you'll just get this one box, this blue box here, and we'll ask how many doses of a Brisvo have been affected by the current breach, and you can just pop in a number there. But if you have some doses that were affected by more than one breach, then we'll get you to pop in how many doses you have that have been exposed to more than one breach. So you shouldn't be doubling up between the blue table and the yellow table. And so we've got this little purple box underneath that will say, you've indicated that you've got a total of 20 doses of a Brisvo in your fridge. If that is incorrect, please check the numbers that you've entered above. So if you're like, oh no, I actually only have 10, that's a flag for you to go, oh no, I've had 5 that have been affected by this breach only, and then I've got 5 that have been affected by more than one breach. And then we'll just ask you for those that have been affected by more than one breach, how many breaches have they been affected by? Because that will also determine the advice that the public health unit will give you. So we've got all of the different vaccines listed here, and you'll just fill in that information for each one. Some of them we require a little bit more information, so there'll be an extra box around the batch number and expiry date. And then we come down to the documents required section. So for each of these, we've provided a bit of a example picture, but you also would have received examples in the email. And then this little green button here that says upload file is where you would put that upload that information, and you would do that for each of the documents that we require from you. So the purpose-built vaccine refrigerator, twice daily min-max chart as well. If you've got a refrigerator malfunction, we'll ask for you to pop in the refrigerator service report. And then we also recommend that, it is recommended that immunisation providers ensure all staff are trained in vaccine storage and cold chain management, but there needs to be at least 2 staff. So we have 2 upload files here for cold chain management certificates for the online training module. So I haven't filled everything in here. So you can see these yellow boxes, but once everything is filled in, then the submit button will appear and you will hit submit. That sends an email off to the immunisation team. They will review what you've entered. Sometimes we may still need some more information, and we will tick some boxes on our end to say, you've mentioned that you've got a domestic refrigerator, that's not advised, here's what you need to do. Or, you've said that some of the vaccines have been given to people. We actually need a list of people that have been provided with that vaccine. That will automatically be sent back to you via email. And if that's the case, you can then log back in. We'll provide you with another link and you can log back in and enter that information for us. Again, it pops back to us. Once the whole process is complete and the public health unit is ready to provide advice for the immunisation products that have been affected, we will fill that information in on the form here, and we will attach that to an email that gets sent back to you so that you can then look at the form and see, okay, my Brisvo doses that have only been affected by one breach, I can retain and label those. Or if you've got a Brisvo doses that have been exposed to more breaches, we might say that you need to discard those. So I haven't shown you the full process because we're not quite ready to launch it yet. But when we are ready to launch, we'll make sure that we provide communication to say that we're ready to go. And yeah, we're really open to feedback, and we hope that this will make your life easier and streamline your processes. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Renee. I can't thank you enough for all the work, the hard work and the hours that you've put in to develop this system for us. It's going to be absolutely fabulous and we're really excited to roll it out. And unfortunately, as Renee said, this is a Hunter New England project only. So Central Coast, you just need to tell Donna to come and talk to me. And we'll see what we can do, but at the moment. So we're really looking forward to rolling that out to make it simple for you, much more simple for you in reporting a breach and for us in our communication with you. So thank you very much, Renee. I'd love to introduce Katrina Clark, our Aboriginal Immunisation Manager for Hunter New England, a stalwart in advocating for equity and priority populations of vaccination for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So welcome, Katrina. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Lovely. So thank you, Sharon, for that lovely introduction. So yes, as Sharon said, my name is Katrina Clark and I'm a proud Barkindji woman from far western New South Wales. So tonight I'd just like to share some of the evidence behind the additional vaccine recommendations for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and talk about why equity, trust, community partnerships remain so important to improving immunisation outcomes. Is it just, oops, it's not the enter button. I'll slide it, okay. Yep, so prior to starting, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I stand here tonight and pay my respects to elders past and present and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us online this evening. But before we start about immunisation, I'd just like to briefly share a story why this work is so important for me. So I've seen firsthand our health inequalities continue to affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And these experiences have shaped my career and my commitment to improving health outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Growing up, I saw not only the challenges our communities face, but also the incredible strength, the resilience and leadership. One of my proudest achievements was becoming the first person in my family to attend university at the age of 45. That experience reinforced something I already knew. People don't always start from the same place. Some people face barriers that others don't, and achieving the same outcomes can require different levels of support. Health is no different. And that's why when we talk about immunisations, we're talking about more than vaccines. We're talking about ensuring everyone has the fair opportunity to enjoy good health. And for me, that's why equity is about recognising that people have different starting points and providing the support needed to achieve the same health outcomes. And that's why equity is at the heart of my presentation tonight. So what does equity actually look like when we're talking about immunisation? One question I'm often asked is why does Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are recommended additional vaccines? The answer to me, it comes back to equity. Equality means giving everyone the same support. Equity recognises that people and communities don't always start from the same place and they may need different support to achieve the same health outcomes. And that's where the national immunisation programs put equity into action. Additional vaccine recommendations aren't about giving some people more than others. It's about providing the extra protection where it is needed most. Ultimately, the goal is simple: to ensure everyone has the same opportunity to be healthy and protected against vaccine-preventable diseases and to thrive. While we've seen significant improvement in immunisations over time, inequalities still remain. Data helps us understand where additional vaccine, additional support and investment can make the greatest improvement. The good news is we know that immunisation works, and we know that many of these diseases are preventable, and when communities have access to culturally safe and responsive health services. The data helps us identify where additional vaccines are needed. As a result, the recommendations were strengthened to better support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families. Take meningococcal disease. Meningococcal disease is a good example of why evidence matters. Although it's uncommon, it can cause very serious illness and lifelong impacts. The data shows higher rates of disease amongst Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, which helped inform the recommendations for the additional protection. And this is equity in action. The evidence identified an opportunity to provide the greatest protection where it could have the greatest benefit. Many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families continue to engage strongly with immunisation programs. However, adolescents' vaccine coverage has declined since the pandemic. Around 3 in 10 Aboriginal adolescents have not received their HPV vaccine by the age of 15, and 4 in 10 have not received their meningococcal ACWY vaccine by the age of 17. These figures remind us that improving access, engagement and vaccine confidence remains critical. So if equity is about creating the opportunity for everyone to enjoy good health, how do we get there? In my experience, it starts with trust. Trust is built when communities are listened to, when services are accessible and culturally safe, and when we work together in genuine partnerships. These are not new ideas, but they are the foundation of successful immunisation programs. The slide outlines some of the key factors that help turn these into principles and into better health outcomes. One of the really encouraging findings from evidence is that we know what works. The strongest evidence supports practical approaches that improve access and support informed decisions. Strategies such as reminder systems, outreach services, opportunistic vaccination, and strong follow-up processes have all demonstrated benefits. But the evidence also tells us that successful programs are built on trust, cultural safety, and meaningful partnerships with communities. Our role is not to tell communities what they need, but to work alongside, support existing strength, and create opportunities for formed decisions. Ultimately, improving immunisation coverage isn't simply a clinical challenge, it's a partnership challenge. So after looking at the evidence, the next question is, what can we do differently? The good news is that many of the solutions are already known and many already exist within our communities and your services. Improving immunisation outcome isn't about finding a single magic solution, it's about consistently doing the things we know make a difference. That starts with building relationships and trust long before vaccination days. It means working alongside Aboriginal health workers, elders, community champions, and local leaders who already have strong connections with their communities. It also means creating space for questions and conversations and making services easier to access and ensuring care is flexible and welcoming and culturally safe. But most importantly, it's listening. Communities are best placed to tell us what's working and what's not working, and where improvements can be made, and many of the solutions already exist within communities. Our role is to work in partnership with communities, build on their strength, and support informed health decisions. When we focus on trust, access, culturally safe, and partnerships, we create an opportunity for better immunisation outcomes and better health outcomes overall. Throughout this presentation, we looked at the evidence. We know that some vaccine-preventable diseases continue to have greater impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. But we also seen something encouraging. We know what works. We know that when services are culturally safe, when communities lead the conversation, when barriers are removed, and when trust comes before vaccinations, outcomes improve. The evidence gives us direction, but community shows us the way. Our job is not to arrive with all the answers. Our job is to listen, to partner, and to build on strength that already exists. When we do that, we don't just improve immunisation rates, we build trust, we strengthen relationships, and we create a healthier future for our children, for our families, and communities. The opportunity is right in front of us. Equality is about giving everyone the same support. Equity is providing the support that people need to achieve the same opportunity for good health. And when we combine evidence with listening, partnership, community leadership, great things happen. And that's equity in action. Thank you. And now I'll pass over to Jodie Stevenson.
Thank you, Miss Katrina Clark. Hello, my vaccine heroes. You guys have done amazing. We're nearly there. I'm just going to put my water somewhere and work out how to put my slide up. Or is that your job, Todd? Okay. Okay, we've got this. So my name's Jodie Stevenson. I'm a clinical nurse consultant with the immunisation team. And I'm your cheer squad tonight, team. You guys are amazing. You guys are holding our immunisation schedule together and keeping our rates high. So that's my cheer squad, and I've got some questions for you. Okay. On your phone or your laptop, pop your glass of wine down, and I want you to answer your question. Please. Hasn't it been a great night? We've learnt so much. What about Professor Durkheim describing the lungs? That was pretty gruesome, wasn't it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the schedule's complex. I think vaccine hesitant, keeping up with recommendations, that's part of a complex schedule. Okay. So that's your biggest vaccination challenge. Oh, yep. Okay. Next question. What causes you the most frustration? Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, catch-up schedules are tricky. Okay. You can keep answering and I'll keep talking. Okay, so vaccination, as we learnt from everyone earlier, remains one of the most effective public health interventions. And you guys play a central role in ensuring a safe, timely and accurate immunisation delivery across our community. Immunisation environments are busy, they're complex, they're noisy. You've got competing priorities, you've got staff shortages and time pressures that all frequently impact on vaccine delivery. Within this context, you guys are responsible for vaccine preparation, consent processes, administration, documentation, cold chain management, annual cold chain management, and education. I think, and from earlier, we saw that a lot of you are really confident in this, and I really acknowledge your expertise in this area. I'm just going to try and offer a few tips and tricks that may help some of you. A well-organised and informed approach can significantly reduce errors, save time, and improve patient trust. Providers can ensure that every vaccination encounter contributes positively to both the individual patient and the broader public health goals. Please also note I've put your cold chain essentials there. Renee's given us a great overview. Cold chain essentials, vital. We're still getting it a bit wrong, peeps. That's why I've added it there again. Okay. Every patient contact is an opportunity to offer immunisations. It doesn't have to be a dedicated appointment. I know you're going to say you're all busy, fully get it, but it's a way of normalising immunisations again, putting them back into routine encounters. It's a way of talking about COVID vaccines, flu vaccines, pneumococcal vaccines. You've got someone for travel vaccines, that's a bit easy, but what about your wound cares, your health cares, your kitty with a snotty nose? Just double check that they're up to date with their routine immunisations. Older adults may not be aware of the new vaccines or the change in age limits for them, especially around COVID and pneumococcal vaccine. This proactive approach reduces the need for additional visits, improves coverage, and normalises vaccine as part of holistic care. It reinforces the message that immunisation is an integral component of preventative health rather than a separate optional add-on. And I know someone put in there that you guys have got like 7 minutes, 15 minutes, and things are complex. Is there a space in your day before patient comes in, that you can review air and just double check so you can talk about air while the patient's in there, or at the very least have air open? When we talk about catch-up opportunities, when we're looking at our childhood vaccines, we're thinking all those vaccines are essential and recommended. Just because the kiddie's late, we still want to be offering them. And I want you to think of Bexzero, as Katrina just mentioned. Just because mum declined Bexzero or family declined Bexzero at 6 weeks doesn't mean they're declining it for EVs. Please ensure that Bexzero is offered at every appointment, and that's funded as long as the child starts by 2 years of age. When we're talking your adolescents, from your 11 to 19-year-olds, I want you to be thinking of HPV and Boostrix and the meningococcal ACWI. HPV because nobody wants warts on their private bits, and we've seen absolute reduction in cervical cancer. So please think of those, and your vaccination for your special risk groups. We're talking COVID, flu, pneumococcal. Preterm infants, we're talking hepatitis B and pneumococcal. For, you guys know your patients. For sex workers, IV drug users, men who have sex with men, we're thinking funded hepatitis B from New South Wales. And we're also thinking Mpox for MSM and women who have sex with MSM. For migrant refugee asylum seekers, we're thinking all vaccines. If there's no record, you start a record. For surgical procedures, we're thinking spleen. Spleen Australia exists for this. Okay, frequent errors on air. Guys, we're getting the dose numbers wrong. If the kiddies had 2 doses of pneumococcal 13 and they're now due a pneumococcal 20, it's dose 3 or dose 4 of a pneumococcal containing vaccine, not dose 1, pneumococcal Prevnar 20. We're building on the doses that have been given. Like with the Infinrix IPV at dose 4, at 4 years of age, that's dose 5 because they've already had 4 previous doses of DTP. So really take your time and get the dose numbers right. Get right patient, right dose numbers, and the right vaccine. Otherwise, you're getting phone calls from us because the kiddie's overdue. People are putting an Infinrix when they really mean an Infinrix IPV or an Infinrix Hexa. It's tricky with lots of vaccines and drop-down boxes. Take your time, breathe, and get this one right. And flu vaccines. Oh, please stop recording that you're giving Fluad to a 2-year-old. It generates work for us, and we know you didn't do it, so just take your time and get the recording right as well. Bit of an air update there. Gosh, I know it's created work for you because you guys call us and mums call us or families call us. So AIR decided that they had some extra money and sent letters to everyone saying that you're all overdue for your influenza vaccine. And it's great as a public health measure to remind people influenza vaccine funded, recommended 6 months to 5 years of age, but a bit of a heads up would have been nice. So please know that every kiddie 6 months to 5 years of age is going to show due influenza vaccine from around March, and they're going to stop being due at January. Oh, I'm getting the wrap up. Here's my top 10 vaccination tips. Check air before every vaccination. Confirm your patients. Look for overdue vaccines. You guys are the best at this. Look for what they're due. Double check vaccine brands and expiry dates. Document refusals and indicators. So when we ring and say, why haven't you given if you go? Because we spoke to mum and she's thinking about it. Monitor your vaccine stock, rotate it regularly, know where to find up-to-date information, which I will show you. And there's my extra bibs and bobs. I'm told to recommend the catch-up calculator. But crikey, you guys that have used it, it separates vaccines. So rather than recommend an Infinrix Hexa in 2 months, it'll say an Infinrix IPV now and a Hep B next month. It's tricky, it's complex. Like if in doubt, call us. We love catch-ups or email. Focus on minimum intervals. There's no maximum intervals between vaccines. If I had my Shingrix dose 1 last year and then forgot to come back, I just have dose 2 now. No maximum intervals except for cholera. Everything else we just build on what's been given. Don't need to restart a course. Vaccine hesitancy. You all mentioned that as a top one. Avoid debates. No good. Listen. Acknowledge the concerns. Consider personalised immunisation catch-up schedules. Work with the family and use the Sky resources. There's a special spot for providers that you can enrol and do special training so that you're much better at this. And there's spots for you to send mums and dads that are specifically for them on where they're at their journey, whether they're hesitant, considering, or all in. These are useful bookmarks that every nurse should have saved on her computer. These will be available on the slides. These are ones that we used every day, all day, and I wanted you to have them as well. Particularly Better Health Centre, get your cold shade labels ordered in now. Okay, and these are the things I wish I'd known earlier. Check air before you vaccinate. Like, don't give someone... The majority of our vaccine administration errors are not checking air, like a break in your processes. Please check air, because people go to pharmacies now for their vaccines. So things may have been given elsewhere. Air errors are easy to fix than you may think. They're easy to fix immediately rather than later. Most catch-up schedules are simpler than they appear. We can help. We're thinking of doing just a catch-up training session for a couple of hours. Put in chat if you think that'd be a good idea. Patients value strong recommendations for you. You have skills and knowledge. They value your thoughts and ideas. Please don't hesitate in recommending your vaccines. Keep resources bookmarked. And I wanted to go through these frequently asked questions for you, but I think I'm out of time. I will probably just do one as Sharon makes her way forward. The most common question we get is how early can the 6 weeks vaccines be given? Now, I'm going to say there's a clue in the name. So the 6 weeks vaccines have been brought forward from 2 months to 6 weeks, not 5 weeks and 4 days, not 5 weeks and 5 days. 6 weeks is when they're due, 6 weeks to 3 months. You've got this really big window. Speak to your beautiful admin support. Say they're due from 6 weeks. Don't book them in at five weeks. And as Sharon's still walking, I'm going to say measles. Measles can be given, MMR, from 6 months of age for travellers. So you've got little possums going overseas, funded free out of your fridge from 6 months of age. They still get 2 further doses at 12 and 18 months. Yes, report vaccine errors to us. We really want it. No, you don't catch up missed doses of birth dose Hep B. And don't ever start again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. And you weren't really being rushed off, but...
Oh, no. Everyone's ready.
Some people are ready for bed, I think. Okay, just a brief note about, thank you, Jodie, it was really informative. Just a really brief note about HNE Health Pathways, just to let you know that these slides and resources are there. Please use them. They're really well thought out and they can really guide you through different processes that you may have questions about. And of course, you can always call us as well. So just before I hand over to Phoebe, I'd just like to thank all of our wonderful presenters tonight, giving up your time at the end of a really busy day, sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience with us all. And especially a really big thank you to all of those joining online, because we know that you've also had a really busy day. Most of you have been on your feet all day, doing all the things that we're talking about tonight, and we know that you have really busy days, and we really thank you, and we hope tonight's been a benefit to you with all the information coming from the presentations. We want you to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns to our team anytime. And thank you for the incredible work that you do every day. As immunisation providers, you play a vital role in protecting individuals, families and communities from vaccine-preventable diseases, and we couldn't do anything without you. But always remember, the most important part of the immunisation process is not just the syringe and the needle going into an arm. It's the compassionate, trusted healthcare provider who takes time to listen, provides evidence-based information, answers questions, addresses fears and concerns, and ensures a safe experience for every patient while building a foundation of confidence for generations to come. And that is so key important, building that confidence for generations to come. So we thank you for all that you do, and we hope that you keep on doing it and enjoy it. And hand over to Phoebe.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sharon. I just want to echo Sharon's final thoughts. The experience and knowledge sitting in this room currently is inspiring. A little daunting, but mostly inspiring. And the fact that each of them who have an exceptionally busy 9 to 5, covering the enormous patch that is H&E, but have made time to create their presentations and spend their evening with us. We really appreciate it. I know that I speak for everyone online. We really appreciate it. Everyone online, thank you for spending your evening, appreciating that we are cutting into family time, dinner time, bedtime, on bad days, extra work time. It's fantastic that you join us for these catch-ups. I will get to the certificates. Please fill out the evaluation and look after yourselves, stay vaccinated, and stay safe. Thank you so much.